And the theme is Kashmir, the way forward. And the way forward is in relation to the post-2019 strategic and difficult things that came the way of Kashmir and Kashmiris after India's decisions in relation to their constitution. So we have a panel today, and hopefully we will hear from our panelists. Each of us are aware of most of the panelists that we have today, in fact, all of them. And the theme is relevant and important because post-2019, things have gone from bad to worse for Kashmiris in so many different ways. And there are different aspects, different elements, and different areas that need looking into, not just the humanitarian part of it, human rights part of it, demography, and so many other aspects have come into play. And I would leave it to the distinguished guests and our panelists to discuss and describe these important areas today. And the first on our panel today is somebody who is not a stranger at all to either us or to the people who know anything or everything about Kashmir, is His Excellency Sardar Masood Khan Sahab. He is the 20th president of Azad Kashmir, Azad Jammu and Kashmir, and he has been in the office since 2016 August, so 5 years this month. He has a very distinguished diplomatic career. He was Pakistan's ambassador to international organizations in Geneva and ambassador to China, and he was also the Pakistan's permanent representative in United Nations in New York. So after that brilliant career, now he has the responsibility of being the constitutional head of the Azad, or the free part of the Jammu and Kashmir. So without any further ado, I would request His Excellency to kindly grace us with the topic, and the theme that we've chosen for him to discuss is the role of AJK, the Azad Jammu Kashmir government, and Pakistan in highlighting and looking at the issues post 2019, how to attain that diplomatic support and what's happening in Kashmir. Sardar Masood Khan, please.
Well, thank you so much. And right in the beginning, I want to thank Mr. Javed Gill and the Scottish Human Rights Forum for inviting me to speak to this very illustrious forum. I have been in touch with Mr. Gill for some time, and he's been working for the cause of Kashmir. And we, the people of Jammu and Kashmir, are grateful to him for the efforts that he is making in Scotland and beyond. First, I would respond to the question that you have posed to me directly, and then I'll go to the background, as a matter of fact, to identify the most serious problem that we are facing today in the Indian-occupied Jammu and Kashmir. First, what Azad Kashmir has been doing, or Azad Kashmir leadership has been doing since August the 5th, 2019. I'll talk about myself first, and then I'll give you a sense of what the people of Azad Kashmir or other leaders of Azad Kashmir have been doing. The major effort was led by the government of Pakistan, which is responsible for foreign affairs, as per an understanding between the Azad government and the state of Pakistan. But I, in my capacity as the president of Azad Kashmir, shortly after August 5th, 2019, traveled directly to Norway, and there a big event was held, which was attended by the Norwegians and also by the Norwegian Prime Minister, ex-Prime Minister of Norway, and we celebrated not only Pakistan Day, but also talked about Kashmir. So, and there, I mean, we were able to reach out to the Pakistan diaspora community, also to the Norwegian lawmakers, think tanks, and so on. The reason I have mentioned it is that, in fact, this is the kind of pattern that we have followed, that we would reach out to the leaders, to the parliamentarians, to heads of think tanks, and to the media networks. This was the first engagement, but after that, we've had several engagements across Europe, in the United States, in the Gulf region, and also in the ASEAN region. This is what I have done, and I want to tell you that from there, in fact, I mean, our first engagement was in the European Parliament. In the European Parliament, we talked to dozens of MEPs, and there was a Kashmir Day held on the premises of the European Parliament. Later on, the issue was discussed by the relevant committees, and at Strasbourg, there was a plenary which was held. And in that plenary, representatives of all political groups spoke. We worked behind the scenes, but we also worked directly with the MEPs. During this period, I went frequently to the United Kingdom and talked to the parliamentarians, peers, MPs, and from there, of course, we went to the United States. In the United States, there was this YC contact group meeting on the sidelines of the United Nations General Assembly session. In fact, unfortunately, this was the last session that was held before the COVID-19. So it kind of restricted our movement. And I also went to Washington, DC during that period, also traveled to the Gulf region, as I mentioned. Also, Turkey, let me tell you, the Turkey hosted a major international conference in November 2019 to shine the spotlight on the issue of Jammu and Kashmir and the horrendous developments that were taking place there. And all top leaders were present there. All the representatives of Turkish political parties were there. Intelligentsia was there. Lawmakers were there. And, I was invited as the keynote speaker. I kicked off the debate there. This was a 2-day conference. And this was a daring act on the part of Turkey because it was receiving démarche after démarche that do not give this space to the president of Azad Jammu and Kashmir. The president of Azad Jammu and Kashmir is painted as a pariah by the Indian government, Indian establishment, and Hindu zealots. So, but that happened. We also, I think, in early 2020, I went to all the leading universities in the United Kingdom, and I spoke to them. I also was there on the eve of the 5th of February when we celebrate the Kashmir Solidarity Day. And afterwards, I traveled to Kuala Lumpur. There's an organization called MAPIM, which has prioritized Kashmir in its agenda. I was able to meet the entire leadership, related to external affairs. I met former Prime Minister Mahathir Mohamad, also the Vice Premier at that time, Mr. Anwar Ibrahim, head of another political party, their foreign minister. So just, I can go on and on, but I want to tell you that we've been trying our best to talk to the world leaders and also to the lawmakers. Wherever I went, I also went to the mosques. And I talked to the, not on these mosques. I mean, one occasion I kind of recall that when I spoke at a mosque in Toronto, the leader of the opposition also addressed the same gathering because this mosque happened to be in his constituency. So in Kuala Lumpur, I also prayed. I prayed all over the United Kingdom and in Europe also. So we've been trying to reach out to multiple constituencies. I can't tell you the type of impact it had because our challenge still remains. The people of Jammu and Kashmir are in captivity. They're being brutalized every day. Now, because you had also given a general topic, and let me briefly talk about it so that other participants can give their valuable views on that. I do see that you have a very illustrious panel. I see Honorable Afzal Khan, who's been a very, very ardent supporter of the cause of Kashmir, and Dr. Ghulam Nabi Fai, who is our leader of the Kashmir movement outside Pakistan and Jammu and Kashmir. And so we revere him, we respect him. I also see the name of Clara Bedwell. She's a great campaigner. I also see Mr. Ranjit Singh Sarai, and Dr. Irfan Jahangir is moderating. So I feel it a special privilege to be included in this panel. Now, let me tell you that what is the most serious problem. The most serious problem is the demographic changes in the Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir. According to the official statistics released by the occupation authorities and a Deputy Home Minister of India, some 4 million Kashmiris, Hindus from all over India have already been imported to Kashmir, and they have been transplanted upon the population. So these 4 million Kashmiris have come from all over India, as I said, from Maharashtra, Bihar, Bengal, Punjab, Delhi, UP, Rajasthan, many other states, as far as from Assam. And they are being given citizenship of the occupied state of Jammu and Kashmir, or the disputed state of Jammu and Kashmir. Now, this is a huge migration post-World War II. This kind of transfer, this mass transfer, mass influx has not taken place even in conflict situations. The Afghan war, for instance, or the turbulence in Syria. So, I mean, in just 1 year, I mean, they started this entire process last year in April, and they have already given these illegal domiciles to 4 million people. This is one thing. The second thing is that the Indian authorities are right now pursuing gerrymandering, whereby they are redistricting the constituencies, or they are redrawing the constituencies on demographic basis, so that they can increase the representation of Hindu lawmakers in a future puppet assembly that they constitute to legalize their occupation. Now, as you already know, that the territory has been divided into 2 parts, and these are called union territories or federal territories. This bifurcation was never voted by the Kashmiri people, or they never gave their consent to this kind of artificial bifurcation of the occupied territory. So right now, according to the Indian statistics, the population of Muslims in Jammu and Kashmir, or the entire region, I mean, including Ladakh, is 68%. I think it must be 70% plus, but they always hide these figures. In any case, what their new formula is to decrease the number of Muslim representatives in the puppet assembly and increase the number of Hindu representatives. And the ratio that they're thinking of is 50-50, so that they can bring in a Hindu or a Dogra chief minister to change not just the optics, but also the very composition of the state. So they are artificially and forcibly trying to transform a Muslim majority state into a Hindu state. So this is what is going on. The third aspect that I want to highlight is that after amending land laws, the Indian occupation authorities, the armed forces, also the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh operatives, they have set out a diabolical plan for grabbing 80% of Kashmiri's land. 80% of Kashmiri's land, and they said that this is not owned by the Kashmiris. And there they would build, they've already started plans to build illegal settlements. These would be, I have compared them to Bantustans, or the illegal settlements, Bantustans in South Africa during the apartheid period, or the illegal settlements in the occupied Palestinian territory, which have been sprouting since the early 20th century. And now the entire occupied Palestinian territory is pockmarked by these settlements. So, and now, of course, I mean, the next step for Israel to do was to claim that this is their sovereign territory. Similarly, India is creating this web, this network of illegal settlements all over Kashmir to saffronize it, to Hinduize it, and to do away with the identity of the Muslims, to erase the identity of the Muslims. To erase the identity of the Muslims, they have banished the Urdu language, which was the lingua franca in Kashmir for diverse regions. It was also the official language dating back to the Maharajas period. That has been abolished. Now, Hindi script and Hindi language are being imposed on Kashmiris. And the cultural landscape is being changed. Since they want to change this territory into Hindu Rashtra, they would revive and reconstruct thousands of temples. And just to give it the Hindu face to this Muslim state, predominantly Muslim state. I do not want to sound communal, but let me tell you that I would call a spade a spade. You know, when Muslims are being killed and pilloried and persecuted, don't say that just say Kashmiris. It is Kashmiri Muslims who are being targeted, as a matter of fact, as a class. I mean, it stems from the very doctrine propounded by Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh and the Bharatiya Janata Party, that Muslims are impure, they are outsiders, they need to be either brought back to Hinduism, or they need to be expelled, or India needs to be cleansed of their presence, and so on. I mean, their top leaders talk about it very openly. So these are some of the, that's not all. I mean, every day young men are being killed. Young men are particularly targeted. They are being killed. Every day, dozens of young men are killed in cordon search operations, and most of them are not even militants. These are unarmed young boys, and they are identified by Indian proxies who present themselves as militants, so that the Indian government occupation authorities can justify these cordon search operations to hunt down and kill freedom-loving boys who have never picked up a gun. Probably they have raised a slogan, or they have written somewhere about freedom and self-determination, and that's why they are being punished. So there's a massacre going on there. As all of you know, you are all very well read that all these activities which are being carried out by India in the occupied territory are genocide. They constitute genocide, war crimes, crimes against humanity, and ethnic cleansing. And these are cognizable in accordance with the international law, whether it's the Geneva Conventions, whether it is the ICC statute, or it is the Security Council resolutions, or customary international law, or international humanitarian law. India is accountable. And this data that I have shared with you, this has not just been collated and collected by the Kashmiris, but by international organizations, international human rights organizations, even other independent agencies. They have, and the United Nations Human Rights Council has also collected data along these lines. It was published 2 years ago, but because of Indian pressure, they are now updating that, the 2 reports that they have produced in 2018 and 2019. Now, the question is, let me also draw some parallels. These are very important. You know, in 1935, the Nuremberg laws were promulgated. One was called the Reich Citizenship Law, and the other was called the Law for the Protection of German Blood and German Honor. Now, these laws, these infamous laws, in fact, introduced segregation. Indians are doing precisely the same thing. They think that the Hindus, this Arya Samaj, this is superior to Muslims, outsiders, Dalits who are untouchables. There's this embedded caste system, and therefore these domicile laws that were introduced last year, they are a new version of the Nuremberg laws, as a matter of fact. Now, what did they do? I mean, what these laws, in fact, I mean, they discriminated not just against Jews, but also against Romas and blacks, and later on against Poles and so on, because they wanted to establish the supremacy of the German blood. Now, they changed names. There used to be a mark on the passport of the Jews. They introduced badges. Similar activities are going on in Kashmir. I talked about apartheid, and there was this Population Registration Act of 1950. And in that act, I mean, people were identified that these are Bantus. Bantus were all black people, South Africans practically. Colored was the second category. Then there was this white category. And then later on, they added the category of people belonging to India and Pakistan. And there was complete segregation. And they introduced passes for going into certain white neighborhoods or going from one neighborhood to the other. There were restrictions on entering into any residential or business area. They also introduced land acts. I mean, India has in fact plagiarized these land acts of 1913 and 1936, introduced by South Africa. And you'd be surprised to know this comparison is eerie, that South Africans too, the white minority also commandeered and expropriated 80% of South Africa's land at that time and gave it to the white minority. Only 20% was given to the indigenous South Africans. So in the occupied Palestinian territory, you know the history, the Balfour Declaration, which was
I would have to request a closure because of the timing.
Thank you so much. I would stop here.
Thank you very much. I think it was very, very detailed, and I am really thankful for the parallels there, because sometimes people do not recognize these parallels, and it can be quite difficult for people to see that actually this has actually happened in the past, and we need to learn lessons from that. So thank you very much for that detail, as well as the excellent summary of what actually is the ground reality in Kashmir. Towards the end of our program, we will have questions as usual. They are coming thick and fast from our viewers, and I will be posing them in the end. So Jazakallah khair. Thank you very much. The second panelist that we have today is also a very distinguished guest, Mr. Abdul Basit, who is the ex-Pakistani diplomat. And what is more interesting in relation to Kashmir is that Mr. Abdul Basit was the Pakistan High Commissioner in India between 2014 to 2017, which was a very turbulent time as well. And he's quite well known among the social media platforms, speaks his mind out, speaks his heart out, and is very well known and recognized. And even before in the Pakistan High Commissioner in New Delhi, he's also been to Germany, also been posted in Moscow, New York, Geneva, and of course here in London as well. So I would be very keen to hear from himself. For the first time meeting in person, and having the pleasure to hear face to face. The topic that was chosen for Mr. Basit today is how to mobilize the world community in favor of Kashmiris. Mr. Basit.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you, Dr. Irfan Jahangir, and my greetings to Honorable President of Azad Jammu and Kashmir and other distinguished panelists, including Dr. Nabifai. To achieve a national cause, I strongly believe that there are three components to any national cause. First, that the cause which is being pursued should
उसमें
be legitimate, both in political and
ये थोड़ा बंद कीजिए,
political and
म्यूट कीजिए.
should be legitimate both in legal and moral sense. Second is the commitment. Commitment should be unflinching, and the nation as a whole should be behind that cause. And third, obviously, is and far more important is a plan of action. Now, obviously, all these three elements intertwine, and if we were to achieve a cause, it should be legitimate. It should be the nation should be united, and then we should have a strategy as to how to realize that cause. When it comes to Jammu and Kashmir, we all know that it's a legitimate cause. There is international law. There are UN Security Council resolutions. So there are no two views about it. That the Kashmir cause, there is struggle to right to self-determination is legitimate, and the struggle is fully justified. Second, obviously, we all see that how the people in illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir have been giving humongous sacrifices day in and day out, and there is no end to their sacrifices. And we have seen that Kashmiris, as far as their resolve is concerned, they are fully committed to this cause. The third element, the plan of action. Now that is, as I look at it, is somewhat missing. And we have been making efforts. We have been making untiring endeavors here and there. But I personally do not see any well-knit, well-calibrated, well-thought-out strategy as to how to go about it. And when we say that, I say that there is no all-encompassing strategy as to how to realize our cause. In this regard, one thing which is fundamental is to mobilize the global community in favor and in support of your cause. But in order to mobilize the global community, I think the first step should be that one should mobilize, first you mobilize yourself, your own nation, and then perhaps by doing that, you will be able to reach out to the world community as a whole. In this regard, in this context, I have served in the UK as well, also in the US. And what I have noticed is that our diaspora around the world is unfortunately, rather than doing politics for Pakistan or Kashmir, they do politics of Pakistan and of Kashmir. And hence, our diaspora remains divided along political lines, ethnic lines. And this is, in my view, the biggest impediment to mobilizing or reaching out to the world as a whole. Number of things can be done despite all these problems which we are facing, resource constraints, our political divisions. I think since we are fully committed to this cause, we should still be, it should still be possible for us to finding ways and means as to how to reach out to the global community in support of our cause. My own feeling is that the first step is the organization. Unfortunately, till time you have a solid organization in place, individuals may be making their efforts on their own part, but then we would not be able to see results of those efforts. So in this context, my first recommendation to the Kashmiri and Pakistani diaspora would be that it is important to have an organizational wherewithal in order to reach out to the global community. Uh, I know there are many organizations. Organizations do exist, but they are not, in my view, they are up to the challenge. And the challenge is huge. We all know. So, in order to step up to the plate, it is absolutely imperative that we should have some kind of Jammu and Kashmir Joint Action Committee or task force at the international level with chapters in major countries like in the UK or in US or France or Germany. So in order for our diaspora, first of all, to be under one umbrella. Unless that happens, as I said, we will continue to be making individual efforts.
बुला के ले आइए वापस।
We need to
तो
bring
पहले
all
अंदर
these
switch off
efforts under one forum
यार, दोनों को
and
बुलाना
under one umbrella, so in order for them to be more effective. Then obviously there is research is terribly lacking. Politically speaking, as I said, we need to do politics for Pakistan and Kashmir. So in that context, we would expect our diaspora to be more active and to get themselves mainstreamed in local politics. It is very good to see, encouraging to see many people of Pakistan heritage or Kashmiri heritage part of the House of Commons or House of Lords. But that is not enough. More and more Pakistani and Kashmiris should be part of these important forums and part of the government as well. So this is one aspect which our diaspora needs to look into as to how they should be mainstreaming themselves. Then obviously, I personally find huge gaps in how to build our narrative, and since we have not been able to build a proper, effective narrative, we do frequently see inconsistencies in our approaches towards this particular cause. So narrative building is also very important, and narrative building cannot happen without unless you have think tanks in place, you have media outlets, and you have research oriented organization in place as well, so that this is done on a constant basis. This cannot be done episodically, that you take one step here, two steps there, and then you forget about it. It's a process. Narrative building is not an event. So you need to focus, our diaspora needs to focus also on that. And then, unfortunately, I do not see our diaspora very active on mainstream media. We are living in our own cocoons. I hardly see Kashmiris, appearing on CNN or BBC, big international networks. There are people who do make individual efforts, but there is no, there is no effort, strategic effort, as to how we can penetrate into international media and then put across our views on that. Unless you utilize these platforms, then obviously now the social media has come into place, and its reach is mind-boggling. Outreach is mind-boggling. So I personally feel that the time has come that while we are exploring possibilities in traditional, conventional means, now we have the platforms of social media as well, in order to put across our message. But this is not going to happen unless we have, as I have been saying all along now for the last 4 years, that we need a solid strategy which has all these components in place: political, media, public, and everything. And then this would not come without resources. You all need, resources to generate all these activities. So that is the biggest question. In the past, we have seen, we have established many centers, but unfortunately, those could not continue for a variety of reasons. But now our diaspora needs to generate funds indigenously rather than counting on the government of Pakistan or and I know that our diaspora is, especially in the West, is quite well off. And if the commitment is there, there shouldn't be any problem in generating funds for these activities. So in a nutshell, to sum up, I would say that while we do have the commitment, we all speak, and we express our sentiments all the time. But there is a huge gap, what I see, between what we say, profess, but we do not really are not that proactive with this cause demands of us to be. And without that, I think that we will not be able to build enough pressure on India, because the name of the game at the moment is to build both internal and external pressure on India. And unless we are able to do that, India is not going to budge an inch from its position. There is simply no reason, because at the moment, India is not feeling that pressure, unfortunately. If out of over 600 MEPs, only 16 MEPs write a letter to, to the UN or to world leaders, so what kind of an impact it would have? So in order to build pressure on India, we need to first organize ourselves and put our efforts, I mean, we need to be more methodical in our approach.
I would have to request the conclusion.
Rather disconcerting. So I will stop here. And once again, thank you very much for inviting me. And
thank you very much. Thank you very much for really highlighting two very, very important areas. Organization in the form of an organization, not organizations who are individuals. And number two, building up a sustained narrative. Really, really important. There are a couple of questions on that. I will come back to you in the end. The next distinguished speaker that we have, the panelist today, is once again no stranger to either us or to the Kashmiri community or in the UK community, Mr. Afzal Khan, who is the MP from Manchester. He is the ex or the former Lord Mayor of the Manchester for years 2005-2006. He is himself a Kashmiri, and he obviously feels the pain more than anyone else. And he has worked in the past as well within the Kashmiri community to highlight the issue. And I am really looking forward to hearing this important topic that we were given to Mr. Khan today about the Britain's added responsibility post 2019. Mr. Khan, please.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Good afternoon, and maybe to some people, good evening, and Assalamu alaikum. Let me start by thanking you, Dr. Irfan Jahangir, and also extend my thank you to Dr. Saab Gill Saab. It's always a pleasure to join you, and thank you for the work that you do in Scotland. I think before I make my remark, can I say this to Dr. Irfan? Just give me 1 minute's notice when you bring an excellent chair. I'm not criticizing you at all. Just give me a 1 minute's notice. The second thing I want to say is really take this opportunity to thank our president of Azad Jammu Kashmir. I know his tenure is coming toward the end, for the excellent work that he has been doing both in the Kashmir and also internationally. I've had the honor and pleasure accompanying him a number of times in the European Parliament, where I was a member of European Parliament, and then also in the British Parliament again. So thank you for all your excellent work, and I have no doubt wherever you move, you'll be an asset for Pakistan and Kashmiri people, and your commitment to the cause of Kashmir is for life. There's no ifs and buts here. So thank you for all that you have done. We have an excellent speakers here, and the time is tight. All I suppose I want to say is the issue in the suffering point of view is there. Some of the challenges strategically that we face. Again, President Saab has touched on that. And then it's been a privilege for me now to follow our former ambassador, Saab, who's been looking at a global sort of challenge that we face. And in that context, that's where Britain ties in as well. And what I do want to say is that actually the way things have been moving for the last 73 plus years is not good enough to say in a sort of simplest language. We clearly are not near the goal which we want to achieve. And I think the difficulty we are facing in the last few years now is that what you have is a particular sort of almost a fascist government in India with BJP, with RSS, and Hindutva ideology that is throwing up additional challenges to everyone, and not only in Kashmir. I would say actually in India itself, whether you're a Dalit, whether you are a Christian, Muslim, Sikh, there's a huge issue that's happening. And then if you extend that whole challenge to almost every single neighboring country to India, that shows the risk that we are facing from this current government. And added to this challenge is, of course, Pakistan, India, China, all are nuclear powers and all have gone to war. So the world peace at that risk as well. And that what takes me then to UK. UK has, of course, historical responsibility. UK ruled that part of the world for a long, long time. And they left this unfinished business. Sadly, this isn't the only place. Palestine is another place, which the world actually is are seeing the difficulties and the suffering of Kashmiris and Palestinians. And then on top of that, I suppose UK also has responsibility as being a permanent member of the UN, a very form which job is to maintain peace with all the dangers that I've already highlighted. Why I think the UK government needs to do more. And then, of course, you throw into the pot is the Commonwealth responsibilities, which India, Pakistan, and many other countries collect up. And again, Britain has a huge historical role with that. And if you add on top of that is the millions of people who actually reside in Britain, who are British, and whose heritage connects them to both Pakistan, Kashmir, and to India. Again, their direct connection with that part of the world and what happens is directly connected. So I think we are seeing some progress here. Basit Saab touched on some of the difficulties, but I would say this, that I think in Britain particularly, the progress politically is gaining momentum. If you look at the APPG on Kashmir, more and more cross-party parliamentarians are actually joining. That, I think, is a good sign. The fact that there's been now debates there, the fact that there are regularly questions there, is a sign that actually some progress, some pressure is building here. But the bottom line is, where I think Basit Saab was correct, is the government itself, the way they handle the whole situation has not changed. And fundamentally, if I can sum it up, the government position is every time you ask them a question, they love to sit on the wall or on the fence, and they never commit themselves towards the responsibility side. And I thought the best highlighting of that point is when the Sikh farmers were protesting in Delhi, one of my good friend and a colleague, MP Tan, he asked the Prime Minister a question about the farmers in Delhi. And the reply of the Prime Minister of Britain was, he thinks that Pakistan and India should talk. You can see how their mindset is fixed. Any issue in that part of the world, yes, it's India and Pakistan which needs to talk. Please don't ask me anything. So I think that demonstrates that it is. But I think the flaw in that whole argument is clear, in the sense that if you think of Northern Ireland, if you think of Gibraltar, if you think of Falkland Islands, all of them, our attitude isn't that. And so ourselves, we're practicing one thing and yet preaching something else. So that, I think, is the challenge there.
Just a reminder of the 1 minute. That's the question.
Well done. So I'll move now. You'll see I'll move on a rapid speed and get through my points. So look, I think what we need to do is really pile this pressure on the UK government. And in that, of course, they have a role with the US, they have a role with the EU. That I think needs to build the momentum. I think there needs to be further alliances building in the UK, and that means political parties. You know, we've got a huge diaspora here who are connected to different parties. They need to be engaged within the parties and within the conferences that will be happening, and then the manifestos which are set, which actually take us towards changing the policies. So that work, I think, is what needs to be done. And furthermore, I think with the abilities that we have here is building those alliances with the NGOs, the human rights organization. You know, Amnesty International is a good example. When India sticked it out, there's a lot we can do. And I'm hopefully planning to hold an event with them in the parliament. And then finally, I'll finish with this. Basit Saab is touching on this as well about overseas Pakistani Kashmiris. I'll say first thing is this. Actually, the attitude of Pakistan government and the Azad Kashmir government is even more important. And how committed they are, how consistent they are, has a direct connection to how the diaspora feels here. And then once they're here, I think those who are here, we certainly have the strength. We certainly have the financial muscle as well, which could be used to build all this together to pile the pressure ultimately to the government, where there is a change of policy, where they actually balance this idea of their trade interests and the human rights interests, which I think EU does much better. I think we are getting better. There's lots of good work is going on. We don't need to be pessimistic. We need to show our alliances, solidarity with our Kashmiri brothers and sisters. That's equally important. They know that whilst the world's main organization may not be there listening to them, turning their face away, but the people of the world are standing firmly with them because their cause is a just cause. Thank you very much, Irfan. Now you are muted.
Thank you very much, Mr. Zakhan. That was really, really important to highlight, especially from yourself, an MP who has a say in the parliament and outside in the community as well. The two areas, one, Pakistan and Azad Kashmir government, they have to be consistent and realistic in what can be achieved. And number two, that there's a lot that can be done in partnership within the community and with international organizations, NGOs, especially the human rights organizations. So thank you very much for those very, very valid and important two pointers. The next speaker, the panelist that we have today, again, somebody who is very well known in the circles. Anything to do with Kashmir, you cannot conduct that program, shall I say, without Dr. Ghulam Nabi Faisab. We're really lucky and really happy to have him with us again. He is the General Secretary of the Washington-based World Kashmir Awareness Forum. We're talking about the forums that are available. This is one of the really excellent and very well-gelled forums. He's also the member of the board of directors of the Istanbul-based the Union of NGOs of the Islamic World. He has, been awarded multiple times in his country in USA. American Spirit Medal was given in 2007 and Republican Medal of Freedom in 2005. Very, very prestigious awards, obviously, for his work that he has been doing wonderfully well. And he has been speaking really outspoken about Kashmir for decades now and has traveled more than 40 countries for this cause. So there you are, the dedication, commitment, and consistency that we were talking about. We have amongst us a very distinguished man with us, Dr. Ghulam Nabi Faisab. Please go ahead. And the topic he has got is, I think, one of the most difficult ones among the panels that we have today, is the challenges faced by the Kashmiris post-2019, and if there are any solutions for the way forward. Mr. Faisab.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. First of all, let me thank Dr. Javed Gil Sahab and Scottish Human Rights Forum for organizing this very important webinar to commemorate the sad anniversary of August 5th, 2019. August 5th, 2019 is one of the darkest chapters in the history of Kashmir. What happened within the past 2 years in Kashmir can only be imagined, but not explained. The people of Kashmir understand that they are very weak indeed. But they also understand that there is the international sanctity on the side of cause of Kashmir. And the topic is challenges and the solution. The very first challenge we are facing is the disinformation at the global level by the government of India. What happened just this week to be exact, on August 2nd at the United Nations, when the Indian ambassador to the United Nations, he wanted to deceive, he wanted to defraud, he wanted to misinform the United Nations that Kashmir was the internal matter of India. But why is it important? It is important because Indian ambassador was speaking as the president of Security Council. And distinguished ambassador, he knew that his statement was in violation of international agreements. He knew that his statement was factually and legally wrong. Why I am saying so? Because one day later, on August 3rd, the spokesman of Secretary General of the United Nations, he articulated his position that Kashmir issue has to be resolved under UN Charter and under applicable United Nations Security Council resolutions. So ladies and gentlemen, you may be wondering, what made the spokesman of the United Nations to clarify the issue? This is a very important question. The answer is very simple. Because it was here at the United Nations in 1948 that the world powers, they took the stand that the future status of Kashmir has to be decided by the people of Kashmir. Not only United States of America, your country, United Kingdom. They were the principal sponsors of the resolution number 47, which was adopted on April 21st of 1948. Let me also make it a point here. There was much in these deliberations at the United Nations, which was controversial between India and Pakistan. But one thing was never controversial, and that is to have a plebiscite in Kashmir, to have a referendum in Kashmir. That is clear from the statement, which was made by Sir Gopalswamy Iyengar, who was then the Indian delegate to the United Nations. He spoke on January 15, 1948, and he said, whether Kashmir remains in India or accedes to Pakistan or becomes independent and seeks the membership in the United Nations, that must be decided by the people of Kashmir. The another challenge is the misinformation of the world leaders. We really thank the Secretary General of the United Nations, who said more than once that I urge both India and Pakistan to initiate the negotiation to settle the issue of Kashmir. But the poor Secretary General also knows that there have been more than 76 rounds of talks between India and Pakistan. The talks between the founding Prime Minister of India, Jawaharlal Nehru, and the first Prime Minister of Kashmir, Sheikh Abdullah, in 1952. The agreement between Indira Gandhi, who then was the Prime Minister, and again the same Sheikh Abdullah in 75. Those agreements failed. You know why? Because there was no Pakistan. And likewise, Tashkent Declaration of 1966, similar agreement of 1972, Lahore Declaration of 1998, they failed because there was no Kashmir. So world leaders, they need to understand, when there are going to be talks on Kashmir, it has to be tripartite. The people of Kashmir understand very well that India and Pakistan, they are the most important parties to the dispute. But we also want India and Pakistan to understand they are only the secondary parties to the dispute. The primary and the principal party are the people of Kashmir. With all these things in mind, what are the steps so that we can set the stage for the settlement of Kashmir issue? Just few of them. Number one, I don't think it will be very difficult for the world leaders to understand. Kashmir is just like Afghanistan. There is absolutely no way you can find a military solution to the Kashmir problem. It's a political issue, and it has to be resolved through political means. And we must rule out one thing, ladies and gentlemen. That is to talk about the conversion of line of control into international border. When you speak that, ladies and gentlemen, it's an insult to the intelligence of the people of Kashmir. Because people of Kashmir today believe The line of control is a line of conflict. And they also want the world powers to know that their land is not a real state, which can be parceled out, which can be divided into two disputants. Number three, there must be third-party mediation or facilitation or engagement or understanding, whatever name you want to give it to. And that facilitation does not need to be from the United States of America. It does not need to be from the United Nations. It could be a person of international standing. And the United Nations know there are multiple of them. And one thing I would like to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, people of Kashmir understand. We do not really need to invoke principles, because principles sometimes will not let you launch the peace process. The principles can be easily twisted. They can lend you the varied interpretations. But there are two principles which are involved in the Kashmir conflict, two principles that must remain the guiding force for any settlement. What are those principles? Principle number one, it is the inherent right of the people of 5 zones of state of Jammu and Kashmir to decide the future of Kashmir. And the principle number two, it is almost an impossibility to ascertain the wishes of the people of Kashmir, except in an atmosphere which is free from coercion, free from intimidation, and free from external compulsion. I'm not alone who is saying it. I have at least 120 giants of Indian public square, intellectuals, diplomats, journalists. But I will give you just one example because of shortage of time. Swaminathan Iyer, he wrote in Times of India, not in the Jung paper of Pakistan. Jung is a very important paper. Not in Srinagar Times, in Times of India, Swaminathan Iyer. He said, we have promised the people of Kashmir to have a referendum. He said, let us have one. Give the people of Kashmir 3 choices: India, Pakistan, and independence. I'm not talking about Muhammad Yasin Malik, Swaminathan Iyer. And he says, let the people of Kashmir decide, not the armies of India and Pakistan. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, the people of Kashmir have a hope and they have an apprehension. I am proud to be an American. I am proud to be a Muslim. I am proud to be a Kashmiri. What is the hope? Hope is the vision of President Joe Biden. What is the apprehension? The apprehension is we are not sure whether President Biden is going to articulate his vision into reality. What is the vision? He said more than once, the foreign policy of America is based on democratic values and human rights. Then he said, President Biden, he said, United States must lead, not with the example of power, but with the power of example. We really would like to appeal President Joe Biden. Whenever he talks to his friend Narendra Modi, and he talks to him quite often, I think he talked to him more than 4 times. Can he tell him, this is the time Narendra Modi must lead with the power of example in the state of Jammu and Kashmir, and give the people of Kashmir right to self-determination, which India has promised to the people of Kashmir at the United Nations. With that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.
Thank you very much, Dr. Faisal, for those very, very important and practical steps, which hopefully people are listening to, and hopefully we can, muster support in that direction and hopefully work on that. So thank you very much for that. The next distinguished speaker that we have today with us is once again a very, very important friend of something that we have been talking about, the right of self-determination. And Mr. Ranjit Singh Sarai, who's with us today, he is the coordinator of the Self-Determination Council of the World Sikh Parliament UK. He's a lawyer by profession and is a long-standing campaigner, as I mentioned, for the application part of this right of self-determination. He's a steadfast and vocal supporter of Kashmiri's self-determination for obvious reasons. And he has urged international intervention to end India's lockdown, and he has and to deliver a plebiscite in Kashmir. And his topic, no kind of the different than is that oppression of Kashmiris and the right of self-determination. Ranjit Singh Sarai, please.
Thank you, Irfan. Can you hear me okay? It's a great pleasure to join you and my fellow panelists and the audience. Thank you very much to the Scottish Human Rights Forum. It's interesting that we're talking about self-determination on an event hosted by a Scottish organisation. So let's talk about Scotland. If it's okay for Scotland to decide on its own destiny for the people of Scotland, then it's okay for the people of Kashmir. And it should be okay for the people of any territory. And that is the crux of self-determination. For my people, for my nation, the Sikhs, we are also looking to exercise the right of self-determination. Now, I'll come on to the right of self-determination in a minute from a legal perspective. But everybody should understand that whenever we talk about individual human rights, if we talk about freedom, if we talk about the right to life, the right not to be oppressed, the right not to be imprisoned arbitrarily, the right not to be disappeared, the right not to be tortured, all of these rights, the right not to be locked up because of your political opinions, all of these rights fundamentally are underpinned, all of these individual rights are underpinned by a collective human right. And that is the right of self-determination. Now, the UN has recognized this, and we must recognize this. It's no good just taking the individual human rights abuses to the international community. We must do that, of course, and there are lots of them. Kashmiris have been oppressed horribly, savagely, to the extent of genocide, just as though India has committed genocide against the Sikhs. So we condemn all of that. Of course we condemn that. But we must recognize that the solution here ultimately will be the right of self-determination being exercised by Kashmiris in their own homeland. Now, as a Sikh, as an internationalist, as a lawyer, I'm steadfastly behind the right of Kashmiris, and so are Sikhs across the world, for them to enjoy that fundamental legal right and that freedom that comes with it. But I'm going to focus just a bit more on the legals, because it's important to understand that India is in the dock. India has officially rejected the right of self-determination applying to any of the territory that it controls. It's done this in official documents with the United Nations. And the UN itself has asked India to withdraw, officially asked India to withdraw that reservation. So the 1966 International Covenant on Civil Rights, Civil and Political Rights, sets out in Article 1 the right of self-determination. India has officially informed the UN that they do not accept that. It is ludicrous for India to be today sat at the presidency of the Security Council, when as a state, its official position is to reject a fundamental human right which the UN itself has prescribed as a fundamental human right. So we must bring the illegality and the unlawfulness of India's position, we must bring that out. We must make people understand that that is the core of this conflict. Just as it is in Punjab with the Sikhs, just as it is with other nations that are trapped within Indian borders or trapped under Indian army boots. Now, I'm going to make an appeal to my fellow panelists, to the audience, that actually we've heard about building pressure internally, externally. There needs to be a focus of that pressure. There needs to be a focal point, and that is to expose the fact and to work on the fact that India is an artificial state. It's a multinational state made up of many, many different nations, and it is being kept together by illegal armed force. So to my Kashmiri friends and to people in the other parts of India that are looking for freedom, in Assam, in Nagaland, in Manipur, the challenge here is to bring this dysfunctional, oppressive state into a position of disintegration. This is the pressure point that we need to focus on, because it is an artificial state that only exists through human rights abuses. So we should work together. I personally will be joining my Kashmiri friends on August the 15th in protesting outside the Indian High Commission in London on their independence, so-called independence. It's not independence for the Kashmiris. It's not independence for the Sikhs. So this is the kind of action plan that I'm going to suggest to all of the people in the region who need to work together to bring about the disintegration of a dysfunctional and, frankly, a fascist state. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sarai, for that. Very, very brief, but very succinct and to the point. Really, practical solutions and practical areas. And I think that is something which is very, very important, as well as to really take steps now, because this has been mentioned multiple times. So thank you very much for highlighting that once again. Our last but not the least panelist today is our very own Claire Bidwell. She is a teacher by profession, and now she's trying to teach human rights to those people whose ears seem to be shut and whose eyes seem to be blinded. So thank you very much for doing this wonderful job. She is also the co-founder of Let Kashmir Decide, a global campaign for Kashmir cause, and we are really, really thankful to her for giving her time and efforts for the oppressed people of Kashmir. And no wonder her topic today has been chosen as the role of international NGOs in campaigning for Kashmir. Claire, please go ahead.
Yeah, good afternoon. Thank you for inviting me along, and honoured to be here with the Scottish Human Rights Forum, and especially as somebody said earlier, because self-determination is something that's very passionate to us, and it's a great platform to have it from. I was down in Glasgow on the 5th. It ended up being quite a poignant day, but the Glasgow people are very, outward facing into their humanitarian values, and I feel a great solidarity building amongst the Kashmiris, Palestinian activists and humanitarians. So I think as Scotland, we're doing our groundwork here to go forward. To allude there to what you said, as there's an irony, because as a primary school teacher, the school that I'm currently at, we have what they call a silver award for human rights. We teach the children every one of their human rights. And obviously, so they grow up and they know those, but then it's very distressing when we see that they are not being honoured within our world. And that is so for me, this has been feeling quite emotional today, actually, hearing everybody there, what they're saying, the work that's going on, because I came to this 2 years ago, and at that point knew nothing. And that was my part as an ordinary human being, trying to understand how were these human rights abuses being allowed to occur, how had this injustice occurred. And that was just on the lockdown, and then obviously the whole story as then unfolded before me, and I can see then within the NGOs of what we are needing to do. And from my experience that I've seen, without a doubt, for me this is an issue of human rights. It's nothing else. It's about how we are treating human beings. So it's about the Kashmiris, about what's happened to them, about what they deserve, what they're owed, how it should lie, and how the Indian government are treating them. And as the last speaker said there about framing this, the Indian country, government, they've got the rest of the world dancing to their tune. And it's very, very difficult to break through that. And so for NGOs, this is really important that we are building on the unity amongst the Kashmiris, regardless of your political ideology, regardless of whether you in your eyes, Pakistan is Kashmir, Kashmir is Pakistan. If that's your ideology, then fantastic, that's your ideology. If your ideology is for independence and you want independence, if you love India and you want your Kashmiris to be with India, we all need to unite and realize this is about democracy, what Kashmiris want for their human rights, because that's the only way we're going to stop the atrocities coming. These politics, they won't come first. While we're busy arguing over how we would like Kashmiris to be or how Kashmir would like to be, at the minute, we don't have, so much work is being done, but we don't have enough awareness of the issue. It's not, and India are just going to keep, while we're arguing or pulling away from that cause, we're doing a huge damage to this issue, is my feeling. And there is so much valuable work that's been done that I've been honored to learn so much of that and have access to so many people with the brilliance, in the level at Parliament. Afzal Khan talking there about building unities, alliances with NGOs. That's so important for NGOs to build the alliances with the members of Parliament, because although it's a human rights issue, it will only get solved through politics, because that's how our world works. So for me, the NGOs and for what I'm doing, we need to raise the awareness. We need to raise the global awareness amongst the common person to the human rights atrocities that are occurring. And we can't do that without the Kashmiris also being part of that and highlighting what's caused this issue. I mean, as Masood Khan said at the beginning of this, he's been through every country. He has been in mosques in the UK. He's made, many connections. I met him myself. I think somebody also mentioned, I think it was Afzal Khan again, the importance of the visibility of anybody speaking up for the Kashmiris, because then we need to see action. There's so many people mistrusting in this issue because it's gone on for 70 years. They don't know who to trust, there's so many different stories. But if we unite, if we amalgamate the knowledge that we know, the reality here is the 73 years of abuses, the millions missing, the rapes, the line of control, the shootings, everything that it's conjured up, and then finalized 2 years ago when India came in the way they did and took over. And again, to allude to a story before, we are seeing these cordon and search operations. We're seeing the young men annihilated. So many families without their breadwinners, without their fathers, people living in fear every day, a third generation of fear, never knowing what the day is going to bring. That is the reality at the heart of this. And everybody on this panel and anybody listening, for me, the human rights are at the issue, and we need to come together and find that way. All the NGOs building the unity, building the contact, supporting one another, letting one another know what work that they are working on, so that we're not doubling up too much. So, we need to be contacting councillors, members of Parliament. We need to be working, as the person talked about earlier, in building the global movement. We need to bring it back to our grassroots level, our local towns, our areas, and hope that everybody else is doing that around the world, and we can build it up. So it's a top-down effect, a bottom-up effect that they need to work on. I'm going to pull back to the Red for Kashmir campaign that we've just recently run. It's one of those things, putting heart and soul into something that was for the Kashmiris. The profiles all turned red 2 years ago on the 2019. When I became aware of this red color was everywhere, for the alarm. We ran a campaign, a uniting campaign, a solidarity campaign, wanting everybody to jump aboard, record this evidence, raise this global awareness, so that when you put on your social media, everything was alight with red, so the common person can see what is this about. And we had so much participation. It was fantastic. There's over 1,000 people talking about it on Facebook. There are over 10,000 hashtags on it on Facebook. Twitter was alight as well. But more important was the process in coming towards the 5th of August, the people we've met, the contacts we've now made, the building forward. We've come across people in our organization, and this is where other organizations could take forward that model. We've met with senators in America, in Canada, in Australia that we've never had before, people working as human rights activists. And then, on the day, like I said, it was a very emotional day, because often we're doing our work, we're doing our campaigning, and in order to not break down, you're focused, you've got a bit of a shell up, and you're focusing on what you want to do to make an impact, what you want to do to be heard. And I think on the 5th, it was very, the emotions came out, the reality of it came out, why we're doing it came out. And I think as human beings, that's what we all need to do, to remember the reality. Self-determination, as everybody said, and as his right to Scotland, is a basic human right. It's also a right promised to Indigenous people. So around all these, you know, I often feel if you had the Indian soldiers at your door and they're coming in to rape your mother and your daughter, are you really going to stand there and start saying, oh, well, this is under this notion, this is illegal here, and this is, you know, it's wrong. It's just wrong. And as human beings, whoever we are, whatever our political ideology, you know, we need to rise above that. We need to then, with regards to that, work together. The NGOs need to be the humanistic, put their efforts into solving this, into self-determination would resolve all that issues. I think we also need to work on, you know, our world is very based on economics, and we're struggling.
1 minute, Claire, just a reminder, as Brother Afzal has, you know, reminding me of the 1 minute reminder to everybody.
Yeah, perfect, thank you. So it's based on economics. So it's our job to as well show people that how the economics could be just as important to the world. Without the, you know, if there was peace in the region, no wars, everybody would be so much more profitable. However, Kashmirs decide their future. Without the conflict, there would be more productivity. So I think there's scope to show that by valuing the human rights, it can also serve the needs of the economics. But India need to be challenged without a doubt. We need to raise awareness. That's the stage we're at. Really, for me, with this campaign, is raising the awareness, so we've got more people, more army to knock on our government doors, knock on UN doors, and get the Kashmiris' voices heard. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Claire, for that. Very, very important. And I think sometimes the emotional part of it is missed when in all of the legal, innuendos, and I think that's really, really important, because that's a huge part of what's happening in Kashmir. That people need to emotionally connect with that and actually feel it. So thank you very much for highlighting that as well. We have a few minutes left, and I have quite a few questions, and I have to apologize to the audience who have sent a lot of questions. I will have to prioritize and only one question for each of the panelists. The first question is for Ambassador or the ex-ambassador Abdul Basit Saab, that people have really loved the idea of, you know, media houses being part and parcel of this, and they are asking how and who should be the one, because it's a very, very tricky and difficult area. How and who should approach these media houses to really build a narrative on Kashmir? Mr. Abdul Basit, you might have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, I think it has to be done institutionally. I mean, all individuals, we have been making out efforts, but those efforts have not been able to yield, good positive results so far. So if we move on institutionally, organizationally, and I think then we would know as to who should be doing what. The problem at the moment is we do not know as to what are our resources, who are the people who can go out and articulate and respond to questions. So that is the problem. So unless we put all our resources together, organize ourselves institutionally, I think it will remain kind of, a moot point as to who should be going and who should be going where. These are the questions which organizations can handle well.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Basit. The second question is for yourself, Mr. Afzal Khan Saab. The question that has been highlighted is that is there a pointer that people can be pointed towards in their own areas to approach their MPs in relation to building the trust that you had mentioned among the MPs overall in UK, obviously?
Of course there is. You know, this is a democracy in action. Every constituent has a right to go and speak to their MP. And if you look at the demographics and the spread of the many people of Kashmiri background, Pakistani background, Sikhs background, all those, have a common interest, and there will be at least 100 constituencies which we can reach out to. And nothing actually propels an MP more than his own constituent coming and telling him to do something. When I have in my own mentorship boards and somebody contacts me and says, look, you as my MP, I would like you to go to this debate. I would like you to go to this meeting in the parliament. I actually make that priority because my constituent has asked me. So I think it's for us to make sure. And if you can do that either individually, or even better would be if you put 4 or 5 people together, and that's a way to go and see them. They will pick the issue up. Equally, reaching out to them, inviting them to events, building those relationships. A human relationship actually is very powerful too. So we've got to build those relationships, and that will, of course, have influence. I said this to you. As far as I'm concerned, there is a huge improvement which is taking place. We are nowhere near where we need to be. But I think if we build that individual level, organization level, and then into the manifesto and stuff like that, it would make a big difference to the policies in Britain.
Thank you very much. That is really, really important. And I think, may I add to that, that definitely there's a huge number-wise population of Kashmiris that live in UK, and that is an important area that we can really utilize and must be and should be utilized. Thank you very much for that. Mr. Ranjit Singh Saraj, there is a question for yourself, and I think it's an open question, to be honest, but it's pointed over to yourself, so I'm pointing it to you, that you mentioned about building a kind of a bridge between those organizations or people who are suffering and struggling under the Indian occupation. Is there a plan of any sort to bring the organizations together or people together?
It's always difficult because we are facing a very powerful state that is on overdrive, especially since the BJP came to power. But before that, it's on overdrive. It is pushing out propaganda at a phenomenal rate across the world. It's persuading governments that people who are asking for freedom aren't political, legitimate political people, and with a political dialogue and a political argument, they're just terrorists. So that's the dialogue that has been pushed out. It's spying on its own people. It's as we've seen with the Pegasus scandal just a few days ago. It's oppressing its people. It's oppressing human rights activists, politicians, journalists, everybody and anybody who opposes the BJP government is being targeted. So it's very difficult because we have a very, very strong opponent that is being very aggressive. Having said that, the opportunities are certainly there. I mentioned that we're going on a protest on the 15th of August. Now, we can work at grassroots level together, and we must. But I do feel that we need the political elites to speak about this. You need to give direction to the people. We've talked here on this program today, we've talked about building internal pressure, external pressure. It's for the leadership, in my mind, it's for the leadership to bring that vision to the people on the ground, to say that we can work with other nations, we can work with our neighbors and our friends towards a common goal. And I've outlined what the common goal should be. I don't want a nuclear war in South Asia. I don't want India and Pakistan to be engaged, and China to be engaged in nuclear conflict. And ultimately, the BJP, the rampant BJP extremism is going to lead to that kind of eventuality. What we need to do is to create the narrative for the people on the ground, in their hundreds of millions in the subcontinent, and obviously internationally as well, to understand that this is a flashpoint territory. Kashmir and Punjab next door will suffer just as much, if not more. So we need to bring the narrative that people must work together, and we must focus on the real cause of this. And that is, we have a fascist state that's creating trouble internally, externally, and actually working together is a common goal. It's very simple. So as long as the political elite, and we have some of them sat on this program today, if the political elite can have that vision and articulate that vision, then the people on the ground, the men, the women, the children, they will have a vision to follow and to implement. And I think that's probably something that's been missing for far too long. And we need to bring that into the mix. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. It's again a very, very important area, and I think people need to really, highlight that and really start acting, because you're absolutely right. It has been missing for far too long, really. Thank you very much for that. Dr. Faisal, there's a question for yourself. and it's mentioning that the ground realities in Kashmir obviously are quite difficult. However, is there any positive sign from the Indian side which has been given either to Kashmiris or to Pakistan? Because there is a bit of a rumor that there is something happening behind the scenes. Has India shown any sign of resolving Kashmir?
Thank you, Dr. Irfan. You are very correct that there has been this news that there is something going on behind the scene. But I am of the opinion, and I'm not alone in this. I have been discussing it with Mohammad Yasin Malik when he was here in the United States, and Mirwaz Umar Farooq and others. The people of Kashmir, they are not really necessarily against the quiet diplomacy or track to diplomacy. They are not really against that. But why shouldn't the Kashmiri leadership also be the part of that quiet diplomacy? Because you, by the end of the day, you really do not know what's going on there.
Hmm.
And let me tell you one thing, and this is a message to both India and Pakistan. We had the Mandela in Kashmir. Unfortunately, his name was Sheikh Muhammad Abdullah. He was the tallest of tall. As I told you, he had the agreement with India. Was he able to sell it to the people of Kashmir? He was not. So likewise, I really would like to tell both India and Pakistan may be under a lot of pressure from the United States and other capitals of the world. So they can reach an agreement. They can, because they are the capital, they are the members of the United Nations. But the only question is whether they are going to be able to sell it to the people of Kashmir. So there is only one sign, and let me tell you, because we have been able to meet with so many important people, the delegations of Kashmiri diaspora, without mentioning, but multiple organizations, multiple embassies and missions. And they have been telling it, and I really believe in them, that they are in touch with the government of India, they are in touch with the government of Pakistan, but they told us that we feel that if it is being done in a quite diplomatic manner, it is more effective. And we have seen the signs of that. And one thing is very clear, that it was none other than President Obama. President Obama said, which is really important for us, President Obama said in New Delhi that the resolution of Kashmir is in the national interest of United States of America. Gentlemen, let me repeat. President Obama, as the president, along with Dr. Manmohan Singh, the resolution of Kashmir is in the national interest of United States of America. And he also said it at different occasions, it is because of Afghanistan. So here is, we have a distinguished diplomat here, Ambassador Abdul Basit, and I always have 10 minutes. I always listen to his these very important contributions. So Pakistan has a role to play in it. Pakistan has a really role to play in it. So only hope is that if Pakistan, if not today, if not tomorrow, I know there is no direct communication between the Prime Minister of Pakistan and the President of the United States, but I am sure it is going to open. So they have to make it a priority to tell America that without any condition, they are not putting any condition, they are going to help America in Afghanistan no matter what. But at the same time, they need to have an understanding that ultimately, if you really would like to have a peace in the region, it cannot be without resolving the issue of Kashmir. And lastly, let me quote one of the Indian intellectual. He wrote in the New York Times, and the name will come to me. And he said the key, you open the door, the key of peace in Kabul lies in the valley of Kashmir. So that is very important.
Thank you very much. That was really, really important. I think it had to come from Faisal because a lot of the people are under the illusion, confusion, and there's a lot of anxiety among people as to what's going to happen and is it going to be just, you're under the table and things are just going to be passed on. We hope not, because otherwise, as you mentioned rightly, this would not be acceptable to the people of Kashmir and we'll be back to square one. The last question is for yourself, Claire. The question, as we mentioned, that thank you very much for the brilliant work that you have been doing. Do you have any contact within the occupied of the Kashmir, meaning at the level of NGOs?
Yes. I have quite a few contacts within IOK at grassroots level. I do have contact with NGOs, yes.
Thank you very much for that. Sorry, go on. So that's actually, there's other loads of questions. We are completely out of time. And in fact, I have got 30 seconds to thank everybody. So really do appreciate all the time that you've taken up. I know some parts it's morning, some parts it's evening, and in Kashmir it's almost night time now. So really thank you very much to all our panelists from the bottom of our heart. Scottish Human Rights Forum really thanks all our panelists, our distinguished panelists, for staying with us in this webinar, for all the excellent insight that you have given us, the solutions, the pointers towards solutions, the way forward, which was the theme of our topic today that you have given us. Thank you very much. And we also thank all the audience for their patience, as well as staying with us and all their brilliant questions, which I hope have been rightly answered by the distinguished panel. Thank you very much. May the peace and blessings be upon all of you. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.